But there's another type of abuse that's not physical or sexual. There's an emotional and psychological abuse that goes on in a lot of these parenting relationships. And I've taken on those cases. And so for me, I always tell people this.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Truth Reveal podcast, where we host conversations that relate in order to reconcile as we endeavor to reveal God's truth. Today, I am your host. My name is Latricia Peak, aka Sweet, and I am joined by my beautiful co-host, April Rivers.
Hello, everybody.
Holly Harris.
What's up?
And we have a special guest with us today by the name of Connie Whitener. Wave at the people, Connie. Yay! So we are so excited to dive right into this conversation. This is something that I know Connie is definitely passionate about. And we as a collective feel like this is something that needs to be brought light to, attention to, as we're going to talk about fathers. And particularly, we're talking about single fathers. So I just want to give you guys a little bit of background about Miss Connie Whitener. Where do I begin? There's so much. Well, I'll start with, I met Connie at Crest Middle School in sixth grade. Lord. We had the same health teacher, Mr. Greg. And she tells this story very differently than me. I don't recall this.
Oh, no.
I don't recall this, but she claims that I didn't like her. This is not a part of my recollection. But at this point, we're 29 years in. Apparently, whatever it was, I got over it. But Connie has been a friend of mine for many, many years. Like I said, we met in sixth grade and have maintained relationship. And I think that's so profound because we live in such a cancel culture where at the slightest bit of anything, people, they just cancel you off and write you off. So to have someone that I can say soon to be 30 years of friendship, I do feel very honored. We're getting old too. Lord help us. Connie is a graduate of UNC Chapel Hill. Tar Heels. And she went on to further her education at North Carolina Central Law School. Go Rams? Eagles. Yes. Go Eagles. And so Connie, to me, is one of the smartest women that I know. And one of the things that I love about Connie is that, just to kind of hype her up and let our audience know who we are in the company of. When I say she's one of the smartest women that I know a lot of smart women. These women within this podcast are very intelligent. I'm just talking about like, this girl had got accepted into all these Ivy League schools and all this stuff. And she chose to, go to Chapel Hill and stay in the state or whatever. And she's so humble. And I'm very honored that she's here to talk about something that she's passionate about. So much so that she's in the process of writing a book about fathers. Awesome. And I think this is interesting because as a single, woman, I just want to know what made you feel like I'm about to dedicate time and energy into talking about not just fathers, but particularly single fathers. What was the spark? What was the catalyst to say there needs to be attention brought to this?
So for me, I practiced family law. I had a private practice for about 8 years. And I practiced all over North Carolina from literally coast to coast. When I moved to Charlotte, I would drive back 5 hours to Rocky Mount for one of my clients. Wow. And And the reason why I did it is because I actually really believed in his case. He was a young dad. He had twin girls. And when I say this man would go through river, climb a mountain, swim the ocean to make sure his girls were okay, he would do that. And he actually, part of my relationship with him over time as we went through this case kind of inspired me to actually write these books. As Sweet knows, I am a writer on the side,
yes,
as well as many other side hustles.
Side hustles.
And so years ago when I had his case, I saw how hard and how determined he was to make sure he stayed in his children's lives. And I saw the struggle that he was facing, dealing with broken relationship and mom not necessarily wanting to be easy about having that relationship. He would drive, I want to say 16 hours to come see his daughters. Wow. And so going through that process with him and teaching him how the court system worked was part of what sparked this in me. Another thing, like I grew up with uncles who were dads, and I had my dad and my grandfather, so I always had men around me, and I saw them father their children, and I saw them father other people's children. And so even going back then, hearing how other people had issues with fathers not being present, or the one I hear a lot is, she won't let me see my child. And I'm like, there's no let, this is your child. You are a parent. And so part of that is what sparked it. And as I always tell Sweet, I am a solutions-oriented person. So you keep telling me something is wrong, I'm going to find a way to make it right. And so for me, that's what kind of led me to this path of, okay, you tell me fathers aren't present, I'm going to find a way to make it right. And I'm going to find a way to make sure dads are present in their kids' lives.
Wow.
That's awesome. Yeah. I want you to talk just a little bit about the book series, which is called A Single Father's Guide, and kind of just, we can kind of go from there, but just to give the listeners an overview of what this series is going to be comprised of.
Okay. So, also, I volunteer with a men's program. It's a fatherhood empowerment program. And we talk to, a wide range of men about different issues and matters that come up in family court or child support court or, custody battles. And so in the process, I've learned that there's so much wrong information out there that gets people in trouble. And so I decided to do a series of books. And my first, and they're all titled A Single Father's Guide, and then it's to a particular topic. So the first one is paternity rights, like what are your rights as a father versus what, a mom's rights are, or, what are your rights when you're a husband who was a father versus a single guy who's a father, or you just found out that you're a dad and you don't know what to do. So those types of things. After that, the second book will be custody and visitation. The third one is on child support, and the fourth one is on co-parenting, which I am very excited about writing. How do you work together to parent these kids?
Yes.
Wow.
So that's the series.
Awesome. So, this is so loaded. Like, we could just park at any one of these books and have a whole episode about the books. But you gave me some information, and I think that I wanted to definitely share it because I think it's very important. In the statistics, just to reiterate why it's so important to have fathers present. So I'm just going to give you guys some statistics. Research shows that dads who are involved in their children's lives are the children are 2 times more likely to go to college. They're 80% less likely to go to jail, and they're 75% less likely to experience teen pregnancy.
Wow.
Whereas when you have fathers who are not present or not as involved, there is a 71% dropout in high school, a 90% of homelessness and runaways, and
Wow.
63% youth suicides. And when I read those numbers, that was just they're so huge on either
Wow.
spectrum. And it just really reinforced the importance of having a father present. And, even for myself, having worked in social work and dealing with, parents making reports, sometimes moms making reports against dads. We could always take a report and tell when it was a custody report or when a custody court case was coming up, because it would be like, yeah, this is custody and they're trying to make the other person look bad. And it's just sad because in the middle of that, you have these children who have no say whatsoever, and they love both their parents, and they're being kind of pitted against each other, pitted against their parents, because the adults can't be adults. And it's really, really sad. So I'm so glad that you are champion and taking on this very in-depth and critical conversation. We had a couple of questions that we wanted to kind of dive into and ask you about. And Holly can go first if she wants.
So, like, what advice would you give, to fathers who are in, contentious relationships with their baby's mothers, what to expect, as well as, any tips on kind of navigating that situation?
So my first thing is always establish your rights at the beginning. I've had interesting cases that I won't go into, where
I'm sure
where you have two people who have a child and they don't know each other. And when you don't deeply know a person that you have to be involved with for the next 18, 25, 30 years, pretty much until you pass away, causes chaos. So my first advice is always get a paternity test. That's number one. Second, have a mediator. And that could be one of your parents, some grandparents, somebody with some wisdom to navigate this between the two of you, because you have this relationship mess that's eaten into your parenting, success. And it doesn't have to be that way. So get a good mediator who will listen to both sides and, filter out all the negative energy that you have towards each other and think about more of what the child needs. So mediators are always good.
Okay.
And when it comes to the financial part, I always tell people keep records and not the whole keep receipts, because that does not work like people tell you it does. But keep records. Have a bank account that's specifically for aiding your child financially. Keep a record of that. Write checks and money orders. Don't give cash, that type of thing. So I say be prepared, because when you're in a chaotic relationship, anything can happen. So always be prepared. Keep records. Have a mediator, and always, always, always get a paternity test first. That's number one.
So let me ask the question to piggyback off of what Holly just asked, because I think those are all good points. But then let's say, for example, because we live in a very chaotic world, let's say you meet somebody, you at the club, you turning up. You turn down.
For
you
what?
get pregnant for what? Right. You decide to keep this baby. Essentially, you have this very, very new casual. We can't even call it a relationship. It was like, let's call it what it is, like a jump off type of situation, a one night stand. How do you even begin to mediate that when you literally don't know the person? Like how, I think that's a very good, I think all of what you said is true, but like in real time, what does that look like? Do you go through the courts? Like you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you even begin to process through that?
Okay, so here's the thing. So paternity rights and responsibilities don't really start until the baby is born.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, because as the saying goes, mama's baby, papa's maybe, and that is real. And so until he is actually determined to be the dad, he doesn't have any responsibilities. And a lot of people don't understand that. It causes this anxiety and anger and hurt a lot of times. And so, but you have to understand, like, it's easy to identify the mom of a child. It's hard to identify who the daddy is, because let's just be honest, if we sliding at the club and after hours or whatever, he doesn't know if I was sliding with somebody else before, after, doing whatever, and so you have to consider that the mindset going in, right? And so if you have that in mind, keep in mind, he may honestly not know whether or not this child is his. So start there with that level of understanding. And I always say, counseling and therapy exists. You don't have to go through court to get a family therapist. You don't. And if you start there, and you don't know this man, if he's willing, start there. Start with a therapist, a family therapist, because you don't know what makes him tick. He doesn't know what makes you tick. He doesn't know your triggers. He could say something that's really innocuous to him, but it triggers you, and now you got all this, warfare going on around this child just because you all didn't know how to talk to each other. And so I say start with a communication base.
Wow.
Now, as far as his responsibilities for the child, you can go about that a myriad of ways. You can go through child support court to establish paternity. You can go through family court to establish paternity. You can just go down and talk to Dina and get a DNA test and, kick it off that way. And so there are a number of ways to get started. But I always tell every parent, when you're dealing with the parent of your child, always put the child at the forefront. Deal with that parent based on how will this impact my child? Because no matter what relationship you have with mom or dad, your child will wear all of that. All that angst, all that hurt, all the bitterness, your child wears it because it's coming from both of them. Both parts of who that child is in this battle. So don't battle. Find solutions and always put child at the forefront. And that way, it takes away a lot of the chaos when you think of it as, how is this funneling through my baby?
Yeah.
The child, not the child support, but the paternity thing. I've had like conversations with people who wanted to get paternity. Is that something that can take place in the hospital? Because so they should probably be doing that like while they're still in the hospital. Like, how does that work? Because can mom prevent that from happening if she wants to be, for lack of a better word, a butthole about it?
I mean, she can, yes, because it's her child. He's not, he doesn't have any rights or responsibilities until he has rights and responsibilities. So he can ask, but it's up to mom to say yay or nay.
Wow.
Now, when it comes to, let's say mom denies the paternity test while you're at the hospital, but mom wants to seek child support. In those instances, you never sign anything. Don't sign a birth certificate, a parenting acknowledgement. Don't sign anything until you get your DNA test. Because once you sign it, in many places, you're pretty much stuck. At least if you don't get it, if you don't rescind that within like 60-day window. It's not like that in North Carolina anymore. There's a way to unravel that many years forward, but in many states, you have 60 days after you sign that acknowledgement of paternity to rescind it.
That's crazy.
And
I did not know that.
So
yeah.
So there's like, is there any like So I guess that means there's no like legal recourse for individuals who just took the mom's word for it. They have, spent this money for a number of years, and then maybe they hear a rumor that they ain't your child. And so they finally go, to her and ask for a paternity test. And when it happens and he finds out that that's not his child, he doesn't have any type of, way of maybe getting reimbursed, or especially if it's child support who's taking it out of his check. Like, how does that work?
So
wow.
This comes up a lot because I know you've seen in the media where, this guy was paying for 18 yees, and then, as soon as the child goes to college, mom's like, ha ha, gotcha,
Yep.
Got him. That has happened. Yeah. So what many states have done is they've instituted this thing called disestablishment of paternity, just like in the beginning you establish paternity. So I think North Carolina started around, I want to say 2012. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We've gone some generations. Wow. This being the case where you got 60 days, and if you're not there in 60 days and say, no, you're stuck. But I want to say it was 2012. Mm-hmm. As far as being reimbursed, okay, so no. The only way you get reimbursed per se is not even being reimbursed. If you can prove that the mom committed fraud, you can bring a fraud case against her. You got statute of limitations. Like, don't say, I found out she committed fraud 5 years ago, now I want to sue her. Every case, every type of lawsuit you bring has a time limit, just like with signing that piece of paper saying, yes, this is my baby. It has a time limit, so you have to be within that time frame, and you have to prove it. I mean, maybe she just didn't know.
Wow.
Let me ask this, Connie. Okay, as far as first of all, I want to say I love this topic. One, I am a single parent. I have 2 children, and their father is very much in their life, but he lives many states away. And but they visit and all that stuff, and we have arrangements, and everything like that. And I live in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, by the way. That's why I had that.
I know it well.
And my heart breaks to hear this kind of thing, because I feel like I see you as an advocate. And I hear of, and I see, and I'm related to, and also, have people in my life who are dealing with co-parenting situations, single parent situations. Where can men, single dads, find advocates? For example, okay, I got a twofold question. Advocates, because for the information they need, where can they go? And 2, like, a lot of this has a lot to do with money being associated with it. Correct me if I'm wrong, paternity tests are not free, right? They're not free, and I don't know if there's any way that it can get help to get it paid for. If you don't mind telling me, what's the range of paternity tests? And then if you do find out there is fraud, trying to get yourself legal representation, that also is a financial thing associated with that. So can you kind of put out there, like, where can men in particular, because a lot of times I see the attitude just out in the atmosphere toward fathers. It's automatically they fault. I don't, it don't matter whether they get something or not. They the deadbeat, they the deadbeat and may not have even known that they had the child.
Right.
Or they're the ones, I'm with someone who, the mother parent gets the information from the teachers, and the mother parent gets the and they won't even communicate with the dad. So again, let me put it back to you, because I'll keep rambling. Where can they go to have an advocate, and what are some of these price ranges for things like paternity tests?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me this. So, there's this great Facebook page called A Single Father's Guide that I run, And on that page,
Wow.
I have a list of fatherhood programs in all 50 states.
Hot
right?
dog.
Awesome.
And I did that because I volunteered with this fatherhood program here in Mecklenburg County since 2014. And those questions come up often because so for instance, if a woman wants to go and file child support in Mecklenburg County, it costs $25 to fill out a form. And that's just the application fee. And you're done. The county has an attorney who represents the case, not the mom, but the case in court. So dad has to go find a child support attorney, right, to represent him in court. Mom is a witness in these cases, so she's not even the plaintiff. She's the witness for the plaintiff, which is the state. So now you have a county attorney, and here you are, dad. You get served with these papers. Go hire an attorney. Attorneys can cost anywhere from, some at the low end would be $150 an hour. At the high end, $300, $400 an hour. And those hours pile up because maybe your case got laid off. You know, maybe you showed up and you got your record purged for now. Maybe there's an increase. So that money starts to add up. Then paternity tests. Here's the good thing about the program that I volunteer with. They provide a lot of resources for free or very low cost. So you can go to a program like that and get a paternity test for $23, right?
Wow.
Or there are some paternity tests that I think is somewhere between $225, $250. I can't remember what it's called. One that says like in vitro paternity tests are extremely expensive because they do it based on testing the mom's blood and separating out the DNA and and seeing what the child is versus mom, and then whose DNA is this added to the child. And that costs a lot more money, but you get to find out while mom is still pregnant, right? So those can be very expensive. Now, I tell people, you can pay on the front end and have some relief, or you gonna pay on the back end and feel like the world is crashing down on you. But there are, if you go, like I said, to a single father's guide on Facebook, I have like flyers with every state from Alaska to Wyoming. Like they have fatherhood programs, and those programs do a myriad of things, including teaching dads how to represent themselves in court. I've had a client, one of my last clients while I was doing private practice was a dad, and he paid me to train him to go to court and represent himself.
Wow.
It's doable. And that's, you just see me a couple of times and I'm out of it. You go handle your own business. So whereas I've had clients who've had to pay a $10,000 retainer for custody cases, versus he paid me, a couple $100, was like $500 for a couple of hours, right? And he was able to go to court for himself. He was very prepared, and he got custody of his child.
Wow.
And so you have to look for things, because a lot of times people just, it's not out there. But you actually have to put in some effort and look. And there are programs out there, and my struggle is that they're not very well advertised. People don't know about them. I have spent the last 6 years, I would go on radio, bring the guys from so it's through the Child Support Enforcement Office, bring them on the radio with me. Like, hey, public, we are here. We're trying to help in this way. These are free things that are coming your way. Job training, and sometimes people still wouldn't show up. So you can't, when they say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Right.
That stereotype about court and judges is so strong within a lot of men that they won't even try.
Wow.
And it's that fear. It's a very strong thing. They've heard all these negative things about court and the court system and child support. They're just trying to take my money and throw me in jail, to where they won't even come to a program that say, hey, brother, we're trying to make this right for you. And we're going to do it in a way where we're going to serve you as a parent versus look at you as a deadbeat that people like to call you. So there are programs out there.
This
Good.
that was really good. This may kind of piggyback. Shoot, you may have already kind of answered it. What do you do like when you have, and maybe you kind of did answer this, but I'm gonna pose it anyway. When you have a father who, let's say, they've established paternity, so we know that this is your baby. For whatever reason, whether he went to child support or mom went to child support, they're going through child support. Child support is being taken out the check, and then mom hits them with the like not a re-up, but they take them back to court for like more money. And sometimes it's not really, I'm speaking from the outside, it doesn't seem like it has validity as to why there's more money that's needed, but they're being hit with more money. And I'm just thinking about what you said in April's question, because you're already paying child support, then you have to pay an attorney to come and represent you. Like, what advice could you give that father to kind of what you were saying, to advocate for himself, to say, why? Like, why am I being brought back into this situation? What's happened?
So everything is based on some statute, some law, some regulation, some something, right? So I can tell you about North Carolina. So in North Carolina, child support cases get open and they get a free review every 3 years. So every 3 years, mom or dad can say, hey, I want this file reviewed. And they can look and say, hey, you need an increase, or, oh, you need a reduction because, you're making less money, or mom is making more money. And so we're going to even this out. Or there's a change in circumstances. Well, Junior was in daycare for the first 3-4 years. Now he's not in daycare anymore. So dad's like, hey, that's an extra expense. So either parent with a change in circumstances can go in and seek an increase or a reduction. Now, and I know this happens, we've had an argument, or I see that you decided to move on and you're in this new relationship, but now you're spending all this money on new boo and her kids. What about our child? And so and I say this not in a negative way, because mom wants to protect the interests of her baby, right? And so she wants to protect the interests of her child, because now, Wanda went on over here with Maria, and now they got Maria's kids, going to Chuck E. Cheese, and my baby ain't been to Chuck E. Cheese in 2 years. So yeah, I need you to come over here and make sure Junior is okay.
Yeah.
And so that happens, but she can't just go in there and say, give me an increase, and the judge is like, okay. No, she has to prove that something has changed. Like, Juan is making more money now. The cost to raise, little Juan Jr. has gone up. And so I need you to look at this file, because these reasons, A, B, C, and D, this has happened. Now let's take a look. And people often talk about how much does it really cost to raise a child. She's not going to spend all that money on the baby, right? All those things.
Yeah,
I always found that it rubs me. And I say that because there's a lot that goes into these formulas, because it's a worksheet in most cases. It's a formula. Like, they have a formula. This child needs this much because these two parents make this amount of money a month, right? But if you're paying $50 a week, right, and the child lives with mom, so mom has to provide a place with 2 bedrooms, versus where if she was single and didn't have baby, she'd have her, palatial 1 bedroom and be all right. Mom has to pay extra for the power bill because Junior is running, video games and Zoom classroom meetings, and now her energy bill has increased. Whereas dad is single, living in his, studio apartment, chilling, because he doesn't have to put in on Junior's video games and da-da-da. All he's paying is the basic structure based on these guidelines, which are based on what he makes per month and what mom makes per month, and then divided by whatever the expenses are and how much custody they have. Like, what is their custody arrangement? And so is not as cut and dry as she doesn't need that much more money. Is what are these expenses like, right? What has changed? Is mom unemployed now? Or is dad unemployed now? Like, there are things that happen and they try to treat you like you're in one household. And if you're in one household and I make 60% of the income and my man makes 40% of the income, then we're gonna pay bills like that, or whatever your arrangement is, right? So those are the things. And for dad, I say this. In most cases, and I can't, like I said, I can never speak for every state, but in North Carolina, for instance, child support is also based on your custody arrangement. Most people don't know that because they don't have a custody arrangement. It's like, I'm gonna get them every other week or whatever, and nothing is in writing. There's no proof. You've just been doing this for a while. Well, when you go to court, you need proof. You need to have something in writing. Both of y'all have signed off that, I'm going to have him half the week. You're going to have him the other half of the week. Because it does play into how much child support you'll pay. And people don't know that.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So basically, if the child spends most of his time at mom's house or whatever, then it would be a little bit different because he's there the majority of the time. Wow.
So in North Carolina, they base it on overnights. So you can't say, I have Junior from Wednesday to Saturday, but he's not sleeping at your house. Like, and then mama gonna come pick him up and take him to her house, and he's sleeping at mom's house 7 days a week, right? So it's overnight. So if he's at your house overnight, 3-4 nights a week, right? And then it changes how your child support is calculated. Like in North Carolina, we have 3 worksheets. It's A, B, and C. B, you're sharing custody. Half the time is with mom overnight, half the time is with dad overnight. You're going to pay less in child support. You may not pay anything in child support because they base it also on your income. And A, the custodial parent, primarily mom most of the time because she has a kid and the kid is going to be with her because she gave birth to the baby. She was there first. And so if you don't have a custody arrangement that changes or shifts, because it gets prorated, like there's literally a calculation that happens. But people, I don't know where people get the idea how they do child support, but it is never even close to how it's actually done. It's really a worksheet, some numbers, we crunch them, and that's what it is. That's it.
So, like, if the man gets married or whatever, do they take into account that spouse's income in?
Good question.
Because I did have a friend that 1 year the income tax got taken for back child support. So
Lord bless God.
Now, I can't give tax advice.
No.
I can't give legal advice on here either. This is legal education, right?
Okay.
So, in the majority of states, they do not consider the spouse's income.
Okay.
And that's the majority. It's not all, because there is a state in the union that does consider the spouse's income.
Okay.
And sometimes they will make an exception, though. If let's say wife is, an heir to Duke Energy and she got all this money and her boo got these babies, but he ain't working because she's taking care of them. They're like, now, wait a minute now. You're interfering with this man providing for his child. So now we're going to tap into what you got going on too. But in general, no, they don't go into spouse's income. However, back to that tax situation. So Mr. Smith has been late on his child support. Mrs. Smith, innocent party here. She just happened to marry a man who's late on his child support. Tax season come. Oh, we're about to get $8,000. No, you're not.
Psych a boo boo.
Baby mama is gonna get that child support. However, there is such a thing, and I can't remember the technical name for it. It's something like innocent spouse. You can file an innocent spouse waiver, right?
Okay.
So the portion of the income tax that was actually meant for your income that you made that year and what you deserve back as the innocent spouse, you can file that paperwork to claw some of that.
Really? I did not know that.
Okay.
Wow.
So yeah, but when the IRS say, you know what, you should have paid your child support, they will snatch it really quickly. You will never see it. It didn't even happen.
Oh my Lord.
Beforehand.
Wow.
So let me, anybody else have any questions? I had a question.
I did, but it's not in line with the child support. So go ahead. If it's in line with that, go ahead.
I did have a child support question. So I know that you were talking about establishing paternity, getting all that stuff up front and running or whatever. But I'm just curious to know your own personal opinion. Like, do you think fathers should pay child support, or do you think they should just take care? And you may have I know you kind of talked about keeping record and things of that nature. Because I've heard people say that they specifically wanted to go through child support from the basis of trying to keep the not the lines of communication open, but to validate, hey, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do because it's coming out of my check. What are your thoughts about that? Should they just have kept a better record or what? What?
My thoughts, right? So I watch a lot of Judge Mathis, right?
I love him.
Watch a lot of Judge Mathis.
I was watching him today.
And this is the one thing where he and I diverge in our views. He always tells young men who come in like, why didn't you put yourself on child support? At least then they'll have a record of what you were doing and she can't say that you weren't doing for your child. Nay, I say, nay, do not do that.
Nay.
That's me. Like me personally, like if one of like Sweet knows, like I have these guy friends who are like brothers to me. And if one of them came to me and said, hey, I'm gonna put myself on child support, I'm like, fool, don't you dare. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
That's friend me, right? Friend me with this legal background, not attorney me, because I wouldn't be able to say that. However, friend me was like, don't do that, because here's the thing. Child support is an enforcement arm of the government, right? So that means, let's say, friend, you lost your job. And I'm speaking from an example of something I know actually happened. Young man, he was part of the program. The young man, he and the girlfriend were together, and he just knew out of routine and family history to go, and child support is part of having a baby. And I'm like, where did you get that from? But somewhere in the line, that's what he learned, that part of having a baby out of wedlock, because they weren't married, is child support gets involved, right? That's just the thing. Like, going to sign up for WIC. It's just the thing. That's what everybody does, right?
Wow.
And I was like, well, who told you this? And he's just like, it's just always been the case. And what happened to him was he did that. He put himself on child support. He was working, making good money. It was coming out. Him and the girl were together. Like, they weren't apart. They were in a relationship.
That's weird.
It was weird to me too. But he did it out of, this is what I've learned. And this has been groomed in me that this is what you do. This is how you show you're being responsible. And what happened for him was he didn't know how to go to that same enforcement agency and say, hey, I've lost my job. Can we work on either freezing my account or modifying it to where when I get employed again, we can go back to what it was. Yeah. But right now, I can't make this payment. He didn't know to do that.
Wow.
He went to jail.
Wow. And
he went to jail for several reasons, but part of it was he ended up going to jail over this child support case, over a child support action, over a child support order that he set on himself.
Oh,
Why would you do that?
God.
Like, why would you enter into the structure? Because it's a structure and they have rules you have to follow, and there's a process, and you don't know all the processes, but you're going to set yourself up to where these people can change your entire life.
That's
can
crazy.
Arrest you, put you in jail. They can seize your property. They can take away your passport, take away your CDL if you're driving trucks. Like,
what?
This can happen.
Wow.
And so that's why I would never tell anybody to go put yourself on child support. I wouldn't tell my friend to do this. Now, you have clients who will insist on doing some things. So I tell them, okay, if you do this, then you need to know items 1 through 10 of what the consequences could be, right? Because you go in not knowing. He didn't know that. He didn't know he could get his order modified because he was unemployed. He didn't know that, I need to show up for court. Even if I got, a job interview that day, court is more important because that judge can send you to jail. You can get another job. And that's one thing that people always say about child support. And I don't mean to veer off, but I have to say this. Most people who go to jail around child support are not necessarily going because they didn't pay. A lot of them are going because they didn't show up for court.
Wow.
Wow.
Dang.
And that was going to be my question. I was going to ask you to speak to how important it is to at least show up, because I know a lot of men, they do get frustrated and they tired and they just don't want to deal with it. And so they just don't show up. And, and does that affect like how judges rule, like even outside of child support when it comes to custody matters, like if they're not there? Yeah.
If my professor Thomas Ringer at the illustrious North Carolina Central University School of Law used to say, "No alligator, no probata," which means if you can't speak on something, the judge cannot proceed to give you any type of ruling. So if your voice isn't heard, your side isn't heard, your evidence isn't seen, no alligator, no probata. Like, it's not going to happen for you. So oftentimes it can be so frustrating. I've been in custody cases for like 3 years, right? The child went from prepubescent to driving cars. Like, it can happen because it can get chaotic, right?
Wow.
But if you do not show up, and this is what happens, you've heard these cases where, well, I never even slept with that woman, but they declared me the father, right? In the court system, there are these things called default judgments in the civil side. Default judgment, if you don't show up, whatever that person said on the other side.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Man.
And the sad part of it happens, and this is happening. I'm not saying this is the most frequent way this happens. A lot of times people just don't show up to court. But there have been instances where you have an old address and someone knows you have an old address, and they send the summons and the complaint to that address, and somebody there signs for it or whatever, and they're like, well, he was served. Well, Mr. Johnson, were you served? No, I don't live there anymore. Wow. You're coming here 3 years later telling me you don't live there anymore when you've heard about the court case. Why didn't you show up 2 years ago? Why didn't you show up a year ago? And so the thing is to always be on top of your game. And when you get a letter from any government agency, please respond. Please show up. If you can't make it to court, but you have a day before then that you can run down there and get a continuance, do something proactive. A lot of times guys are very reactive. Like, when they did this to me, no, boo-boo, you did it to yourself because you had an opportunity to correct this in the foreground. Yeah. Now you over here, like, the judge just declared me the father, and I don't even know this lady. Well, why didn't you go to court? Well, I saw it. I didn't think it was me, so I was like, oh, well, no. Even if it's not you, show up to tell the judge, it wasn't me.
It
Wasn't me.
Yeah, like show up.
Wow.
This is, man,
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot that I did not know. Wow. That piece right there where they can just be like, you are the daddy. like some old Jerry Springer or who was it, Maury Povich,
Boy,
one of them.
I'm telling you.
Maury, like that's crazy. And that's scary.
It just goes back to me saying be proactive, right? Know who you're sleeping with.
Come on, somebody.
That part.
Know who you're around.
Oh, that part.
Answer when you're called upon, because in those instances where you just didn't know, you didn't know, and it's hard to unwind. But thankfully, like I said, they've created these new statutes where you can unwind some of this stuff, which is great because I think it's fair.
It is.
But just go to court when you're summoned.
Please.
Just go. Like if you have to get on a bus, ride a horse, catch a ride, hitchhike, whatever, show up. Because it can ruin your life if you don't. Like who wants to go through that for years and years and years? And I've seen people in and out of jail for child support just for missing court dates.
Crazy.
Wow.
A court date? Like
no.
I was looking at the books that are coming out, and I know we kind of talked a lot about child support and hit on custody a little bit. But the last book to me is the most, not that the other books aren't important, but this last book is like a make or break. The co-parenting book. If you can't co-parent these babies, this child support and paternity rights and custody stuff can go to the trash. Because it's like, I've seen that on so many occasions, even when in my DSS days, when dealing with, blended families or divorced families, and the drama that comes around the parenting and trying to co-parent. And, I got mom calling me and dad calling me. I'm in the middle. Like, trying to help them, like, you have a child, the kids are very much in the middle because they're telling me as a social worker that they really enjoy spending time at dad's house. But their mom says they're being traumatized. They're being, their lives are just miserable when they're there. And kids are like, not in front of mom, but that's not really what's happening. We went skating. We had ice cream, So can you speak a little bit about the importance of healthy co-parenting?
Absolutely. The reason why I actually decided to make that the last book is some years ago, I used to write a relationship column.
Yes, I forgot to mention that.
And so one of the articles I wrote was how to co-parent with someone you hate. And like we've all dated and have fallen out with a guy here and there, whatever, and sometimes you just cannot stand this person anymore. That's not my testimony, but I'm just saying some people go through it. And then you have to share a child with this person, right? Wow. And so you don't want to ever see him again. And Lord, you got this little him looking just like him, staring your dad in the face every day. And so part of your wounds, right, wants that gone. And so it builds up this antagonistic relationship that does not have to be. It can be very harmonious. I've seen people co-parent, like he got a new woman, you got a new man, and everybody going on vacation together and like having family dinners and showing up at juniors baseball games and little girls dance recitals and everybody's happy because they're putting the kids at the top, not their feelings, not their emotions.
Right.
So the importance is this, and I've seen this. I always chose not to take abuse cases when it came to children in custody or whatever, because I was like, I don't know. I don't know if you did it. I don't know if you didn't. So I wouldn't take those cases. But there's another type of abuse that's not physical or sexual. There's an emotional and psychological
Yes.
in a lot of these parenting relationships. And I've taken on those cases. And so for me, I always tell people this, with a child will always love their parent, present or absent. Yeah. And I don't know if it's just something that's, coded in your DNA, that this is a part of me and I'm seeking it out. And they will always seek it out in some way, shape, or form, whether it's to physically look for that other parent or look for someone like that other parent. And they will seek it out. So there's a void that you don't want your child to carry, right? So I always hear parents say, I'll do anything in the world for my child. I'll, come hell or high water, I'll do whatever it takes to make sure my child is okay. But what if that means you have to have a good relationship with that child? What if that's the thing you have to do?
What is that's the thing?
Lord.
And so if that's the thing you have to do, then I need you to stand in your word, because that is the thing you have to do.
That's right.
For your child to be okay, to be stable, you have to forge a good relationship with the other parent. You cannot stand that person. I work with people every day. We all work with people every day that we may not like, but you can work with them to accomplish a goal.
Right.
And if your goal is to have a healthy, stable, functioning child, then you do that. And so that's the last book, because I want you to say, hey, at the end of it all, I've learned what my rights are. I know how all these other things work, but at the end of it all, I have to make sure I get this child to adulthood. I have to make sure I get this child to adulthood without all these scars that you see so many people carrying. And so that is the biggest part of my why, right? I volunteered with kids for a long time. And what I hate to see is a child hurting, either financially, emotionally, or whatever, where they don't have to be. And so telling parents, look, part of your parenting is finding a way to work out an agreement with the other parent. You may not like it. It may not be, the best thing for you, but is it the best thing for your child? And so that's where you're putting your child at the forefront of whatever activities you do. Even I've had guys who were clients of mine who completely changed their lives because they became fathers. They were in the streets heavy. And then I am a father now, so my child can't lose me. I've seen guys where they didn't care about possibly losing their life on the street. They didn't care about possibly going to jail. But then you got this big-eyed baby looking at you like, Daddy, I don't want to lose you. So it's like, gotta give up the game, gotta give up the street, gotta give up, some of them give up all these women I'm chasing because my baby is my number one priority. And those are the stories that I love. Like I'm seeing your child became your saving grace, right? And so if your child becomes your saving grace, you owe a whole lot to that baby. That might be the blessing that you were just waiting for. It could have come through a whole bunch of chaos, but this is it. God has granted you an opportunity. Take it and run with it. So those are things I tell parents. Always, when you're raising a child, because the child didn't ask to be here. Put the baby first. And then everything else will come, after that, because you should be a steward over that which you have given life. You became that vessel.
Come on now.
Come through, then be a good steward.
Come on
and so
here.
those are the things I say. Co-parenting, number one, numero uno, the best thing you can do in life. Make sure your kid is okay.
That is so good.
Wow.
That is so good.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to pass the offering plate. All this good work.
Connie,
it is
the
good.
world needs you, girl. The world needs you.
Absolutely.
Jesus.
I did have a question too. Like I know you were talking about like the abuse and not taking those cases. Is there any way that fathers can shield themselves from those false accusations? Not necessarily abuse, could be anything. He ain't feeding, he ain't doing this. They would try to make him look bad in court. Like, is there any way that they can kind of help, shield themselves from that?
Yeah, that's true.
That is such a good question. I've experienced that doing social work. Yeah.
I I learned something from an attorney that I actually went up against. And I was like, it was one of my first cases. And he came in with what looked like a photo album, right?
Oh,
and I was just like, I didn't learn anything about photo albums in law school. Now, they didn't tell me that part. Trial notebook, make sure you got all your files and everything. What is this? And so what that taught me, and I cannot remember his name, but what it taught me was judges only see what you show, right? And so what I always would tell my clients is, look, all the little awards dinners you've been to, you went to the church and the baby was giving an Easter speech and you were there taking pictures in your phone. Print all of those out. Coach that have the coach write a statement for you because you bring Junior to the basketball practice every week. Have a teacher that you speak with about how Junior's doing in school. Have them write you a little note. Say, yeah, Mr. Foster was here and he came to Parental night and he was there and he does this. And, when birthdays come, he brings cupcakes for the class. Like, have a representation of the life that your child lives with you. Take a whole bunch of pictures.
Yeah.
Take pictures.
That is so good.
Make sure you know your child. Actually, so as I'm working on these books, I'm creating like companion journals with them, because there's some things that I realize that a lot of times even dads who live in the house with the child don't know, because he's running out to work and he's disciplinarian, or he's fun guy, or whatever he's doing. He may not know Junior's allergic to peanuts, or Dr. So-and-so said he needs his medicine at 8 in the morning and 12 in the afternoon, or whatever. Like, so those things, like, keep a chart, keep a record, show that you're deeply involved in rearing your child. And you can do that with calendars. Like, I've had clients my one client that I was talking about earlier, as we were talking about child support, he kept all the checks he had written for his kids.
Wow.
For a 3 or 4 year period.
Wow.
And he was giving mom money, like, consistently. There was no break. Every month it showed up on time. The right amount they agreed to. In the memo, he wrote what it was for. So when we took that stack into the court, it was like, there will be no back child support because he's been
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
So those are part of the records that you keep. And just keep, you want to see this when you get older anyway. But you also want the judge to know, my child is living well when my child is with me. Happy and balanced and everything. So have those things when you go to court.
Awesome.
That's good.
Awesome.
That is such a good question, Holly, because I experienced that when I was in social work this last tenure. And I felt so bad because as a social worker, I can't give any legal advice, and I'm biased. I can't give any legal advice. One, because I'm not an attorney. Two, because my goal is to advocate for the safety of the child. So I'm not siding with dad. I'm not siding with mom. And I had a case where it was 2 little boys, and they were like at that age where they were like 4 and 2, or 4 and 2, 4 and 3. They were very close in age, but at the age where they can talk, but not really give me details. And, mom was making these allegations that dad was basically smoking around the kids, and that they were asthmatic, and that they were having to go to the hospital. And they had, bronchitis and asthma and all this, that, and another. And I'm not saying that what she is saying wasn't true, but to that point where you were talking about, what Connie was talking about with taking pictures and things like that, she said that the kid told her that he fell in a pool when he was visiting with the dad. Yeah, that was the facial expression I had too. Like, what? Because it was wintertime.
Yeah.
And I was like, he fell in a pool and he's 4. And so I'm like, how did you get that story out of him? Like, he actually said that. And so I was like, oh my God. And she was like, I was like, well, what happened? And she was like, I think some people walking by, got him out. I'm just dictating because I'm trying to be unbiased. So I said, okay, well, thank you for telling me this. I'm definitely going to be calling dad to see what's going on, because they had a custody arrangement and their relationship was so crazy. They couldn't even be in contact with one another. Like somebody else had to like bring the kids and drop the kids off and it's that and another. Long story short, when I talked to dad and I was like, okay, so I need to address these allegations with you. Mom is saying that this child fell in the pool. Can you tell me what you guys did this weekend when you had him, for your custody time? And he was like, well, we go to a park and we play, throw the football, and there is a pool there, but the pool's been drained because it's winter. And so there's no water in the pool. And he was like, every time we go to this park, the little boy goes to the fence, to look at the pool. Mind you, he's 4. And, he's showing me pictures. Dad is showing me pictures of what him and the kids are doing and, what they were doing, and I was just like, thankfully I have common sense, but it's like what you're saying. He had to have something credible to validate that he wasn't the monster that was being presented to me by the mom, because the child really couldn't articulate what really happened. And I think there was a lot of coaxing and persuading too. And it's, I just felt so bad for this dad, because he had gotten to the point where he couldn't deal with her so much that he was just like, it was causing a rift. Not that he didn't want to be there for the children. He was supporting mom, but he was beginning not to have relationship because it was so much surrounding the relationship with mom. And I just thought, wow. In my own personal opinion, I said, if this continues throughout their life, these kids are going to grow up to either one, hate their dad or hate their mom for what she did. And that's just a sad place.
It is.
I want to speak to that actually, because that happens a lot and it happens on both sides, right? And I'm always coming from like legally. So there's actually a principle in the law in some states, not all states use it, and there's controversy around it. And it's about parental alienation, right? And so with parental alienation, if you can prove it, say, I really hate this man and I hate that I had kids with him and I'm going to turn these kids against him. And no one actually says that.
Right.
But they do it.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. Your mom's crazy and she doesn't want you to be around me and she's keeping you from, like, all those things that you shouldn't tell your kids. Keep kids out of grown folks' business type stuff. But when you do involve your child in grown people type conversations, in grown people's business, and it starts to weigh and affect your child and that child's relationship with the other parent, and that other parent can go to court and prove that you've done this and have, show how it's, alienated your child from you. Wow. You can actually win custody of your child. The judge can grant you custody and take the custody from the other parent for doing that. And a lot of people get angry about it, like, this is my baby. Well, ma'am, you've been abusing this child, or sir, you've been abusing this child, not physically, but emotionally and psychologically. Yeah. And that's so, weird. Now at least there's some type of tool a parent who's, being alienated can use to fight back. Like, hey, wait a minute. We had a good relationship. I would never harm my child. Right. She's doing everything, or he's doing everything to keep me and my child separated. And now my child fears me, or now my child hates me. And of course, I'm like, we see it. You've proven it. We're going to move this child over to you because you are the better parent. And one thing judges always tell people is, part of deciding what's in the best interest of a child and how the custody is going to be shared or split or decided is, will this parent who has primary custody foster a relationship between the child and the other parent?
Yeah, that's
Because it's
good.
important. And so, and there's always in my custody orders and in my parenting agreements, there was always a clause about not speaking negatively about the other parent in front of the child, not allowing other people to speak negatively about the other parent in front of the child. Basically, your child has a right to a relationship with both parents and with
so
both
good.
families. And that's how it should be.
Yeah. Man, that's so good. You know, just to speak about my own personal experience, I think I was sharing this with Holly earlier. That piece right there, like that child has a right. Now, these new age parents, Lord bless their little hearts, they dealing with some stuff because, you know, my parents weren't married when they had me. And you know, one of the things that I majorly respect about my mom to this day is that regardless of the relationship that her and my dad had, she never alienated me from my dad. She never talked bad about my dad. Whenever he wanted to come see me or come pick me up, or my aunties, you know, wanted to come pick me up, it was just a matter of her packing a bag. I saw my dad's side of the family every summer. I spent, you know, summers with my grandmother and my cousins. I saw them every major holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas. And then, you know, when I became of age and I was able to drive, then I could just drive to my grandma's house and spend the day or whatever. And as an adult, it really made me feel good about the fact that she didn't do that. You know, whatever opinions I have or had about my dad came from me as an individual. They weren't influenced in any way. And I think that's so important that parents do what you said. Don't do that. If dad is bad or mom is bad, that stuff gonna come out in the wash. That child will see. And if it's the opposite, then what you intended for bad will end up backfiring, and they'll hate you for, you know, not being able to have that established relationship. So man, that co-parenting piece is so pivotal. And not using the babies as pawns, because I've seen that too. Oof. This was heavy.
I know.
I didn't mean for it to be heavy now.
I mean, it's so much good information. You know, I mean, Holly and I mean, we don't have children, so I just listening to just a little bit of stories that you told, like, good grief, it's a lot.
It is.
But you know, it also feels like there's avenues for these men. There is hope. There is help. They just have to find those advocates that you were talking about, April. So that's
that one right here
too.
One advocate right here.
Right here.
Yep.
So wow. At this segment, we like to go around and kind of do last thoughts. And as our guest, we definitely want to give you the last say, I guess I would say, or is it first say? Whichever one. We'll go around and just, you know, let everyone kind of give their lasting thoughts. And then definitely, Connie, tell us how, if there's a single father out there, how they can get in touch with you. We'll include all of this information for our listeners into the show notes. I failed to mention that Connie is a side hustle pro herself, because this girl is an attorney. She was blogging, writing, meeting all these celebrities.
Wow.
She has a book already published called Your Boyfriend's Best Girlfriend.
Okay.
I need
There it is. Yes, honey.
I need that myself.
It's in the words of Holly, it's something to behold. And so, you know, she did a relationship columnist, and now here she is giving back to our men and empowering them to be better fathers. So definitely follow her on social media and check her out, and she'll give you all of her information. So we'll just go counterclockwise. April, Any lasting thoughts?
Yes.
Or clock? Yeah, that's counterclockwise.
Yeah. Lasting thoughts. First of all, this was so informative and so good.
Yes.
Oh boy. Thank you again, Connie. Thank you so much for what you do and also the people you work with. For me, this was I didn't say as much because be honest, because I live in this world, I didn't want to say stuff on camera that shouldn't be said. But I will tell you that this is amazing. And my lasting thought to the single fathers out there and to the mothers too, because I am a divorced single mom. Like Connie said, part of you doing anything for your child is making sure you foster a relationship with their other parent. And I personally never wanted my children. It was already bad enough that they had to deal with divorce of their parents. I did not want them to have to also feel like, and then mind you, if you're someone in my shoes that end up being divorced, your children are already having to move out of a home that they're probably used to, may even have to have to move out of the city that they're used to, their friends, and then their parents are not in the same home. The last thing that you want to add on to all of those stress and changes is to put them in some emotional warfare because you can't get it together over what happened. So my lasting thoughts are, parents, get therapy, get whatever you need to get so that you can remember that your children need you to be as emotionally stable and healthy as you can possibly be. And for you to get, I don't care if you was cheated on, I don't care if you were whatever, emotionally abandoned by their parent, the other parent, that has nothing to do with the relationship that your children should have with their other parent.
That's good.
So that's my lasting thoughts. Get the therapy you need. Get your own, get yourself emotionally together and remember that what happened between you and their dad or you and their mom is not their problem. It's not their problem. And man, get Connie's books and get a part of the Facebook group and whatever else you need. The resources. I thank God for her and I thank God for Truth Reveal, this podcast.
Yeah.
Just like she said, she's solution oriented. This is a solutions oriented podcast. We don't like just talking about the problem.
Yeah.
We like to talk about how it can get fixed. And there is a fix and there's no excuses. So that's my final thoughts.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
stuff.
I totally agree with everything she said. And I would, just encourage, single fathers who really love their children and want to be in their lives. Do not stop fighting for your child. Don't allow the relationship that you have with the mother to drain that energy from you. If anything else, keep that fight alive, because there are gone other days where everybody just automatically sides with the mother and just goes, along with anything that she says. There are resources available for you, and seek those resources out. Connie being one of them. Like April said, follow her Facebook page, get those books. Even if you're in another state, I'm sure she has those resources available to you as well. There are resources available to you now. So do not give up that fight. Because that is your most important fight, is to be there for your child. So those are my final words. Yeah.
My final words are that I ditto everything that's already been said, but from the standpoint of a child who grew up not in a home with their father, I would encourage fathers, when you do have a situation where mom is willing to work with you and willing to co-parent, do it. Yes. Don't let any other woman, don't let any other relationship, don't let any other thing come between you still being a father to that child, especially if there aren't barriers being presented to you. You know, a lot of the scenarios that we've talked about have kind of been from the standpoint of when prevention has taken place, where that other parent won't allow something to happen. But when you have a parent that's like, yeah, come get him or her whenever you want to, that do that.
Yes.
Because those are seeds that are being planted into that child that they're going to have to process in adulthood. And your job as a parent is to plant good seeds and to make sure that you contribute to raising an emotionally and mentally stable, productive citizen in society. And a lot of that has to do with that initial relationship that exists between parents, a daughter for a father, a son for a mother. That is our first experience of love. That is our first experience of affirmation. That is our first experience of encouragement. It comes from the parents. And if there's an absence in any way, it does show up. It does show up later down the road. So I would encourage you, when you don't have barriers, don't create them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is it on me?
It's on you, girl.
On you.
Okay, so I have actually a message. My first message is for moms. And this is another part when earlier I was speaking of my whys, right? The message I have for moms is oftentimes when, you know, they see the work that I'm doing, they think that, oh, you're just for men. And honestly and truthfully, I'm for parents because my goal is to bring some balance to not just your child's life, but also to your life. And I say that because as a father, he is a parent. And that means the whole burden should not be on you as a mother. And I've seen it far too many times where you wear this badge of honor of being this strong, single mother, doing it all, working extra jobs to make sure your child is taken care of. That is not your sole responsibility. So part of what I do is I bring some accountability to the other side. So it's not just fathers who are being prevented from seeing their kids or fathers who, you know, need all these resources. Also, sometimes, you know, dads who don't know how to be dads because they've never had a dad. So they get fearful of it and they may run from it. And so part of what I also do is encouragement to take on that, you know, that source of being there for your child and making sure your child has balance. So mom isn't wearing herself out at work or having to leave the child with whomever so she can go earn money, putting your child in, you know, a dangerous situation. So I want women to understand that I also do this for you because it's not just your responsibility to make sure your children are okay. It's also the responsibility of your children's fathers. And so that's part of what I do as well. So I'm a champion for good parents, good, healthy parenting, and good, healthy kids.
Amen.
Now for dads, this is my final message on that, on dads. Your children are your legacy. And part of you being a father, part of you being a man is the legacy that you leave here on earth. You know, you have that strength within you, that character, that backbone in you to leave a legacy. And whatever you're leaving and implanting in your children becomes part of that legacy that you've created. And so no matter what relationship you've had with mom or what relationship you have with your own father, you have to determine on this day that the legacy you leave will be one of joy, of success, of wholeness, of oneness with who you are. So your name is going out into these streets, these highways and byways will be a good one. And someone will be able to look back and say, my grandpa was so-and-so and my daddy was so-and-so. And that's part of who you are. Your blood, your DNA, when you put it out there in this world, that's your legacy that you're creating.
Absolutely.
That's good.
So create a good one. And so I'm here to help.
Yeah.
Good.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Connie, before we go, tell them how they can link up with Single Fathers Guide, I know you said there was a Facebook page, and of course we are going to put all that information in the show notes. But any information, contact information that you would like for them to know, if someone wants to bring you in to come and speak, how would they get in touch with you? All that good stuff.
Okay, so you can email asfguide@gmail.com to contact me, and that stands for a Single Father's Guide. asfguide@gmail.com. On Twitter, you can follow fathers_guide, and that's on Twitter. On Instagram, I have an Instagram page, is A Single Father's Guide. Facebook page is A Single Father's Guide. And they're all linked, so you'll see them all together. Primarily, I would say go on that Facebook page because I post a lot of stats and stories and information, like I was talking about earlier, those 50 different states with information and fatherhood programs. You can find it on there. Reach out to me on Facebook, email me. So yeah, you can get in contact with me on pretty much every social media.
All right. Well, this has been another episode of the Truth Reveal podcast. A very good episode, a very informative episode, and what I like most importantly, a very solution-based episode. Connie has provided us with a lot of truth today as it pertains to fathers and the help that they need and the resources and the laws and all these things that are accessible to them. So we thank you, Connie, for taking time out of your schedule to be with us. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you're doing. It is so needed. Thank you as a single woman advocating for fathers.
And business out there, but go ahead.
I mean, she
never know who may hear it.
But yeah, we appreciate the work that you're doing, and it is so needed. So until next time, people, we will see you guys next week. Have a good one. Bye.